Welcome back to the channel. Today, hopefully we're going to try and put, where is it? The rear end back under our Challenger. Let's give it a whirl. That is right, we're gonna try and get the rear end back on the Challenger. It is sitting over there. It's sitting on blocks now. It was sitting on this engine stand or held up by the engine stand for a while. I was going through prepping underneath. We've just finished spraying it with Rhino liner. As long as we've done the front inner fenders, we're gonna do the fenders as well. And the tub got redone last summer. So why not go a little extra bit of time and effort into undercoating the back end as well. I have new bushings and everything to put in our leaf springs. Everything back here should be new, including a disc brake conversion kit from Dr. Diff. I've started working on that a little off camera, and I've got a few comments to add, along with hopefully a decent instructional portion of this video, because the documentation for this Neanderthal very transparently was not good. I reached out to the vendor, very helpful, awesome, but the upfront instructions were not helpful for me. Granted, it was my first time doing it. It could have been better. Anyways, I'm gonna try and clear that up, make it a little easier if someone else is doing this, who's also a Neanderthal like me, and make it easier for you so you're not scratching your head throwing tools. Anyways, there's a lot to do, so let's just start piecing things together. I know this is gonna take place over a couple of days, so hopefully the end process here results in wheels on the back of this car. And we've got wheels for this thing. Well, we've got fun wheels. Anyways, let me get some stuff organized. I want to get this engine hoist out of here. It's back on our dollies. And then I can start, hopefully, getting the urethane bushings figured out. Back there is boxes of, let me show you. Back here is boxes of parts. Over here, up here, over here. Yep, there's Challenger parts everywhere. So let me go ahead and get sorted out a little bit. And, oh yeah, the fuel tank, that's got to go back on too. Yeah, it'd be nice if we had a little different camera to go underneath. Well, we might fix that too. Anyways, let me regroup and we'll get moving forward. Well, we're back. It's been a few days. There's been a little bit of action around here. End of last week, we had a massive rainstorm come through here, dropped about between 3 and 4 inches of rain right on our front steps. And that led our creek outside the shop here by our driveway. It rose about 8 feet and crested about a foot over our driveway. Needless to say, everything here was pretty darn wet, so we've been spending a lot of time the last few days cleaning up. The driveway is still a complete disaster. There is a massive amount of trees and brush and crap that has flown down the creek. Needs to get cleaned out by a large excavator. Nothing I can manage, so thankfully that's out of my hand. We've still got a lot of work to do with the yard, the pasture, like I said, the driveway. But I'm at least back to a point where we can get back to working on the Challenger. And oh, yeah, if you didn't catch it on the Instagrams, the pickup, I ended up sending it to the dealer. I've exhausted the patience I have for it here in our 91-degree humid shop today. And we've got to go camping, hopefully, when you're seeing this video. And I need to have that ready for my family, so it got sent off to the experts. So usually I'm that guy that fixes stuff, but today I called that guy. Well, a couple of days ago I called that guy. Anyways, back to something I can do, and hopefully do it better than the pickup. We're gonna start throwing the rear end of the Challenger back together and brake lines. What I was looking for was the hardware for the rear shocks Got the KYB Gas Adjust. Nothing fancy, just driver quality. And somewhere these bolts disappeared. I know they're here somewhere, but I don't know where they are. They're probably up in that pallet or hiding in a Ziploc baggie that I forgot where I put from last year. So anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and get these shocks in, or at least hung. I'll come back and tighten up everything afterwards. But get these shocks put in, bring the rear end over under the car and get that lifted up. And I've got the fuel tank to put in. I'll probably put the fuel tank in before the rear end just so I've got that extra space to work with. And look, I was saying, it's tough to get you down there, so I went out and did something. Upgrade, at least for this. Hopefully no longer will it overheat and corrupt footage, but we'll see. So anyways, let's go ahead, try and get some of this rear end put back together. So as you saw before, I went ahead and got this undercoated pretty good. There was already some under here before, just kind of another layer of stuff. And our shocks go up here. Again, where the light doesn't shine. So I've got to try and get the hardware through here and the shock and not drop hardware. So let's go ahead and try and get one of these hung. All right. Already started dropping hardware. We'll see if we can get one of these through. And try and have the gas adjust label showing out. There's one. Now we'll go do the same thing over here on the driver's side. Excuse the lack of vision. Alrighty, well, those are on. Should find some hardware or some a socket and wrench. Get those tightened up. And then work on the fuel tank. So yeah, let me get these tightened up. We'll come back, work on the fuel tank. Alrighty, we've got our fuel tank in, our rear shocks are in. Next, we've got a new box full of, well, a couple of studs and the shackles for the rear end. So I'm going to go ahead. These are definitely beefier than the factory ones, and we've got our new bushings as well. So we're going to go ahead and fit them together. So let's wander back to the back of the bus and check this out. Alrighty, we're in the back of the bus, and when we put the rear end back together, or I guess rehabbed it last fall, that was a while ago, we did go ahead and put in new bushings from Prothane, both in the front and the rear end of the leaf springs. So we don't need to do that again. We can go ahead and start getting our shackles put together. And you know what just occurred to me? Yep. I have the bushings for the bottom end in the leaf springs, but I don't have new bushings in the top end on the back of the car here for our shackles. So I'm going to go ahead and fight with that because, well, getting them out is going to be a challenge. One of them I burned out, the other one is still in there. So let me get that done first. I just sort of totally forgot about that. Well, after a little bit of frustration, I got the old rubber boots or bushings out. I started taking them out last fall, and I think I just sort of forgot and popped those out. It's not terribly bad. I didn't want to get any heat in there, but pop them out with a screwdriver, pry them out, they'll eventually come out. Let me grab one of the original Shackle chunks first. So if you take a look, here's the original and here's the new. New ones are definitely a lot thicker, and they should fit on fine. The only thing I see is that these bushings a little thicker here on the outside than the ones we put in the rear end last fall, so I've got to pop those out. Not the end of the world, but it's pretty easy. Grab a couple of shackles or a couple of chunks of metal, whatever you call these things, because I don't know, and a bolt, and they go through the bump on the frame like that. We've already gone through, like I said, and put our one set in on the frame. That's what it looks like, and then your hardware goes through, clamps in, nut on the other side, and then you'll have the same thing on the leaf spring. So see if I can get you down there real quick. We're gonna put this in, let it hang loosely, and work on the passenger side. Then we'll be able, I think, unless I have to change out those bushings, is bring the whole rear end over here and lift it up under the car and get the front end bolted in place, lift up the rear shackles, or lift the rear end up to the shackles, and hopefully that'll be on. Then we can move on to the next thing, which is even more fun. So like I said, not too big of a deal underneath here. We've already gone and put in our new bushings. Slide it in. Slide that in. And then we've got a lock nut that I dropped. And it was trying to escape. Anyways, like I said, we're gonna put this on loosely because I know we're gonna have to adjust everything to get it in place when we're fitting everything up. So I'm gonna go do the passenger side over here, get that other, the other bushings on the rear end done, and wheel it over. You can see I've got the new rear shocks in place here now on both sides. The fuel tank is put back in place. We are making some progress here on the back end. So hopefully get some wheels in the back of this thing pretty soon. Well, you guessed it, it's another day, another project, and we've actually went ahead and got the rear end rolled onto the Challenger here, and you can see I've got the shackles are kind of lined up where they go. We're getting there little by little, and then up in the front, we're loosely where we go. So I'm gonna work on getting things a little better lined up, a couple bolts in here, and just get things loose so we can work through getting things where they need to be. And then we'll work on to the next step, is going to be getting that disc conversion done. This is one of those times where having a lift would be really awesome to work on, but also considering it's rolling around on dollies, not terribly helpful. Anyways, let's see if we can get some of this stuff. Hopefully the new audio on the new GoPro is audible. Trying without the mic for a change here. Especially working under the car, it's not a lot of room for a lot of stuff. And cameras is one of those things. I've got to remember all this hardware is loose before we put everything back in its final home. We've got to come tighten it up. I'm trying to pull this forward and put my hardware in. So yeah, that's fun, and everything rolls. including me. So it's a joyous fun. I need to get off my creeper. So I need some part of this contraption that doesn't roll around. That's not working. Let me figure out a better way to push this thing forward about 3/4 of an inch. Alrighty, well, I had to go get the passenger side in the upright position. And that one actually stays put. But this here, I should be able to get one nut in, as I'm now blinding myself with the light. Thank you. Two. Now, and move the camera. Sorry, I got 2 of these on, 2 bottom ones. So I'm gonna go back over to the passenger side, slip this assembly back in, loosely bolt it in, and go back to our shackles. So I'm gonna go slip that rear shackle assembly back together, and then see if we can get our rear shocks hooked up, and then bolt everything up. Alrighty, well, we've got our, that's great. Oof. We've got our hardware attached loosely for our 4 points here, rear shackles, and then front where it bolts into the unibody or frame rail, whatever you want to call it up there. And now we've got our new KYB Gas Adjust shocks to put on both sides. And of course, as soon as we clip this little thing, it's going to try and escape on me. These have been bolted in up at the top tight, because that's kind of a pain to get to without anything under here, but with the rear end under here in the fuel tank, it's even more cumbersome, especially when there's just one of you. Now, if I can slide this on, looks like I've got to lift up the rear end just a hair to get this shock on where it should be. That's not going to be a big deal. We can do that as we tighten the rest of this down. So let me go ahead, like I said, get the other shock on the passenger side done. I'm going to get these things tightened down off camera because nobody wants to see me turn a wrench under here. And then we'll come back, because at that point in time, we're going to be working on the rear end axles and that disc brake conversion from Dr. Diff. It's been a few days. Obviously, my hair is shorter. I'm a little more gray, and it's a little warmer outside. Fan over there, excuse the noise, it's about 91 degrees in here. But we're gonna go ahead, work on the axle, get the old bearings off, get the old studs pushed out, and get everything new put on and cleaned up to go back in the back end of the Challenger. Now, there's a couple of things here we've got to consider. Let me get the car part, that's easier to look at. So we've got our axle for the passenger side. We didn't take our 5 old studs, press them out because the ones that are going on there are a little bit longer to account for the drum brake, and then our collar and our bearing need to be removed as well. And if you don't have a large enough press to be able to do that, you can take your angle grinder and very carefully grind off the old collar and bearings. Eventually, if you grind down enough in here, probably 3/4 of the way through, 7/8 of the way through, you'll either be able to split it with a punch, a chisel, or possibly it'll just crack on its own and split because of the release of pressure. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and start cracking away at getting these things cut off. I'll show you how I start the process, but you probably don't need to see the whole thing. But important thing is gloves and safety glasses, which are over there, protect ourselves. So let's get started. Now you don't want to pinch the drive shaft in here and scratch it up. You just want to hold it snug enough where you're able to get your grinder in here and get the job done. Because the last thing you want to do is go ahead and scuff up, grind a groove in, and do anything to potentially weaken the drive shaft, which is all now 53 years old. So, glasses are over here. So we've got our grinding wheel, and I'm going to take and run a line along here and into the bearing. And this as well, I don't want to destroy this if I can help it. So mostly just the bearing and the collar, and these bearings, there's quite a bit of slop in there. So let's go ahead and just get grinding. Now I might almost be able to get the collar. Let's see. Oh, yep, that just split right there. Didn't even have to hit it. So that can now come off, and that's going to be warm, so be careful there. One part done. I'm going to go ahead and just set this back flat. But you can kind of see what I'm getting at. So I'm going to go ahead and grind the last of this bearing off, and then we'll return. Alrighty, similar process. I ground through it, took a couple of whacks at it here with my hammer, and split the bearing. Now I can go ahead and pry it off. No damage to the shaft at all, so that's the important part. Go ahead and remove it. Old parts can go away. And now we're left with our drive shaft, axle, with our 5 studs we've got to press out. I'm going to go over to the bearing, or the hydraulic press them out, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing cleaned up. Well, we've gone ahead, pushed out our studs. I've cleaned it up with some brake clean, got our rust off, surface stuff. I took a wire wheel, cleaned up the surfaces here a little bit, and we're just going to go ahead and throw a little bit of the Eastwood rattle can restoration just to make it a little prettier. It's not going to do a whole lot, but at least it won't be a rusty brown color. Well, I'm going to let that dry and put another coat on there. Once that is dry, we will go ahead and put our new studs in, and then figure out on the table behind me what all parts are going back onto this. We have a new end piece that bolts onto the rear end. We have our bearing, and we have our collar. So, and then in theory, those slide in. You've already got your new caliper assembly on the rear end. So we'll go over that. That was the area where I ran into some difficulty with the documentation I had. And like I said, I had to reach out to Dr. Diff a few times for some clarification. But hopefully this will give you a better walkthrough and less confusion than I had to deal with. Anyways, let me get this cleaned up. We'll come back and put our studs in. All right, well, we've given our axle here plenty of time to dry. I'm gonna go ahead and grab our new bearings and our plate back here somewhere. Nice thing with this Dr. Diff kit is all the parts come labeled in bags, so you know exactly what goes where. I've got a bag of parts for the rear end. That is nice. Now, when you are putting these together, the one part that I did not grasp originally was the order of assembly. And I somehow got this order wrong, and let's say I had to redo a few things. But once I got the right information from Cass, I got the order of things lined up properly, and we're good to go. So on this axle, you have your outer plate, which bolts on to the caliper bracket assembly, and it is, you can see, offset, so it is directional. Only goes on one way. So that slides on here first with our little ridge going inboard. And then we have our bearing that also goes on directionally. And last we have our collar. So, alrighty, so first we got our plate, that goes inboard. Secondly is our bearing. That is directional. There's a little lip that goes on. And then we have our collar that goes on. And then what you want to do is go over to your press and press these down. They will bottom out. I'll show you here. The bearing will bottom out down here. Focus on the shaft, not me. We'll bottom out here. And that's when you know you're down where you need to be. So I'm going to go press that on over my press. Then we'll come back and work on getting our studs in. Alrighty, we got our bearing and our collar on where they should be, bottomed out. Go ahead and take a look at throwing on some of our studs now. Now I went and picked up this Lyle stud installer tool. Hopefully pretty straightforward to use. Put your stud in from the back, set it in place, set this on, and put your lug nut on and crank it down. Now the downside is I don't have any good new lugs yet, and I don't know that I want to take the old ones and possibly hack up these nice new studs. I'm going to try and find the best one out of the box I can and see if I can get them in there, but no guarantees. If it doesn't work, I'll have to grab some of the proper lug nuts and we'll have to come back at a later time. And I feel it's a good idea to get these in before I go ahead and put the shaft back in the car with the brakes and everything else. Just more room to work out here. So let me try and find a good lug nut, and if I can, great. If not, we'll come back in a bit. Well, I found one lug that's not totally destroyed, and I got one of these studs in. Went pretty well, so I'm going to keep working my way around, get the other 4 put in. Pretty easy. Get your stud in from the back, put your puller tool in. And some people, may want to use impact. I'm not, just because, well, there's only a few of them, and I'd kind of like to not pound on stuff before we get it put back together. So just going to use a good old ratchet and pull them in. And this way I can also make sure they're getting pulled in straight and not crooked. Well, that was less than exciting. I'm going to go ahead and get the other 3 in, and then we'll be almost ready to go ahead and put it in the back end of the Challenger. Alrighty, we're over here on the passenger side of the Challenger. We have got that axle put back together. We have our new axle seal in the axle housing itself. And I'm going to go ahead now and grab our brake parts and our axle and start putting this thing back together. Now, because we are doing the disc swap, we have new studs that go back here, T-bolts. They are a little bit longer than the original ones. And due to the swap, we are not using this bottom hole anymore. Just the 4 studs. And then our brake caliper hardware goes on next, and then in goes our axle. That was a little bit of information. I was not catching the order of those being reassembled. So here's our caliper assembly. This is going to be a little tricky to stick on with these floating studs, but we'll do the best we can. Now let's go grab our, and now remember, this piece here has a certain direction it goes, and I believe the short side goes up. Oops. Stay. There we go. Now I've got a screwdriver with me to see if I can get this lined up properly. And hopefully it goes relatively easy. Because we need to get our studs in and our bolts on with our socket. So I'm going to go grab that quickly. So in my socket, I'm going to put a piece of paper towel. And on top of the paper towel, I'm going to throw my nut. So that's going to hold it in there securely as I'm going in there at an angle so it doesn't fall off. Now, where's my bracket? This is the fun part. Or maybe if you've got it off the car, it would be easier to put in place. But that's not how our situation is. I'm just sitting on an old comforter on a concrete floor, trying to make miracles happen. One. If I could only get there we go. I got one, I got two. Try and get one of these in first. At least started. Got one. Let's grab a second one. Now everything is on loosely. We're going to go ahead and tighten these down. These are lock washers, or sorry, lock nuts, nylocks. But we just want to be certain when we're tightening it down, we're watching to make sure that this ring is seated properly. You can look, it's really tough to see back here, but there's a certain place it sits and aligns with that other bearing in there. Alrighty, we've got it on. You can see our differential spinning. And time for something else to put on here. All right, we've got our rear end on. There are two pieces of hardware where the leaf springs attach into the frame, unibody, whatever you want to call it. I need to tighten those down. I've got wrenches over there, but I just have to make a mental note. I've got to do that, but it's hard to do it when the car is about 4 inches off the ground. Now, I've not put the calipers on yet. That's going to wait until after paint. There's no sense putting on extra parts right now until we're done with the paint and ready to finish our final assembly. Less more stuff to get overspray and get dirty. But before we can roll this thing around, we need to put some wheels on here. And Darren has gotten a set of wheels for this he plans to use, but we're not going to put the nice ones on there now until we're done painting and roll around in the dirt and the overspray and the, well, wonderfulness of the country life. And the old wheels no longer fit with the brake conversion, so what are our options? Maybe you've seen them rolling around in the back of the shop here for a while. That is right, we got ourselves a set of Guniwheels, Guniwheel, Guniwheel. That's it. Got ourselves a set of these for all 4 corners. Because if you're going to have a obnoxiously bright colored car, why not have obnoxiously bright colored rollers for the time being? So these are the 45S series, a little heavier duty, and give us the flexibility to use them on other vehicles as well. Now the downside is we have not yet acquired good lug nuts. So I'm going to put 2 or 3 on here now, the old ones loosely. First I've got to find a brake drum from our kit. We can go ahead, excuse me, we can go ahead and slide that on. Okay, you're on. We got our wheel. I have a feeling I'm going to have to find my jack. But these things are pretty sweet. I'm sure you've seen them on plenty of other creators' videos. But my first experience with them, and really excited to have these. Yep, I've got to come up quite a bit. We got 2 more to try. Now, long ago, this car had a nice set of Krager wheels on it, and I would assume some matching nice lug nuts. However, it's time in storage in a state to the south of us. Those appear to have disappeared. Not saying anything, they just kind of sprouted legs and left. So we've got these, whatever they are, crappy lugs for the time being. Anyways, let's get my temporary dolly out. I don't have an actual frame dolly or anything, so it's just been sitting on regular Harbor Freight wheel dollies and stacks of 4x4s, because that's safe. There we go. It rolls. All right, let's wrap this up. All righty, well, got the rear end rebuilt, put back on the car. Mental note, I do not have any rear end. I don't have any fluid in the rear end, so that is a mental checkpoint. I'm gonna write down somewhere so I forget it, to make sure we put gear oil in there before we go ahead and go for a drive. That's a ways off, but one of those things I just want to remember. Anyways, the next step on this is either going to be working on this door I've got the 2 front fenders to do a little more body work on, but ultimately I would like to get the engine bay buttoned up and painted. That way I can get the front K-member and the front suspension put back on it and stop rolling it around on stacks of 4x4s and wheel dollies. So, turning point for the Challenger, parts are going back on it. I don't think there's really anything left to take back off, short of disassembling this final door on the driver's side that has not been really worked. Doesn't really need it, that's why I haven't really touched it. There's no big visible rust holes or dents like the passenger side had. So that'll be on the short list to do. But anyways, like I said, get the engine bay painted so that can start being put back together. And then I think just kind of work our way back, get everything painted, interior, and it's done, right? Anyways, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button below, turn on the notification bell for when we get new Challenger content coming out, or any of our content. We've got a ton of stuff going on. Notice kind of the lack in repetition of videos. It's been a busy summer for us here for the family, and we've got more stuff going on in the shop real soon. Maybe by the time you see this video, it would have already been done or being done, and that's going to be a huge thing down here, but it's also going to be more delays as we get that thing taken care of. But for now, again, thanks for watching, and have fun doing whatever it is that you're doing, and we'll see you in the next video. See ya. It's kind of warm down here.